Right, it's recording now.
Okay, if we go through item 1, which is apologies for absence. Yeah, as we'll take it that Brenda's apologise, shall we? Yeah, unless she joins us later. Okay, emergency procedure. I take it you all know how to get out your own houses, and the officers are quite happy to get out where they are. There's no declaration of interests. Right, just to chair's business now. I'll advise that meeting is being, well, it is being video recorded, but not on the normal way. It's being recorded on Zoom because there's technical issues with YouTube. So it will be recorded and can be viewed later on YouTube. Okay, on Zoom. Sorry. By remaining on the Zoom call, attendees are agreeing to their images and voices recording to be posted, right? Right, just get the Zoom guidelines up. Right, in view of the current restrictions that COVID-19 has placed on everybody, including the Fire Authority, this meeting of the Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee will take place using Zoom this morning. To ensure the meeting goes as smoothly as possible, there are several points and guidelines that I would like to run through with members and for the benefit of any members of the public that are watching the live stream of this meeting. Once the meeting begins, attendees will be placed onto mute unless invited to speak by the chair of the meeting. If members wish to speak or have a question, please indicate this by sending a message using the chat function. This will be monitored, and at the end of each item, there will be an opportunity for members to speak in turn. The open section of the Fire Authority meeting will be video recorded and live streamed onto the Avon Fire Authority, Avon Rescue YouTube. That is obviously debatable at the moment. Channel by attending meeting via Zoom. Attendees are agreeing for their images and voice recording to be posted. Due to the reduction in length of the meeting, it is intended that the reports provided for information or noting a full discussion will not take place. Please keep any mobile phones on mute to avoid interruptions and interference with sound. Public access statements will not be able to be presented at the meeting by the author, but will be received by members and published along with the minutes of the meeting. There is a time limit of 30 minutes for public access. Just to say, no public access statements have been received for this meeting. If I need to call a short comfort break, I will say how long the break will be for the information of the attendees and those watching. The recording and live stream will remain running, but video images will be turned off, as well as microphones remaining muted on return from break. Video images should be switched back on. Right, done that. Right, we can go back to the chair's business. Okay. Could I just, she's actually quite
with introductions by everyone.
Oh, my apologies. So useless I am. I've been doing this for years. I still can't get it right. Okay, perhaps can we introduce the members? If I go round the ones that I turn up on my screen. So Trevor, you're first on position.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody. I'm Councillor Trevor Jones. I'm one of 2 members of South Gloucestershire Council representing Winterbourne Ward.
Okay, and Celia.
Good morning, I'm Celia Phipps. I'm an elected member of Bristol City Council representing Bedminster Ward.
Okay, and next one I've got is you, Cleo.
Councillor Cleo Lake, Bristol City Council representing Cotton Ward.
And then Richard, it's you next.
Councillor Richard Eddy, Bristol representing Bishopsworth.
Okay, and then you, Robert.
Hello everyone, I'm Robert Payne, Councillor for Weston-super-Mare Central, North Somerset Council.
Okay, and that's everybody we've got. If the officers we can introduce. So first, can we Emma, would you like to lead off?
Yep. Good morning, councillors. I'm Emma Bowen, the Democratic Services Assistant at Avon Fire and Rescue.
And you, Peter?
Good morning, everyone. Pete Davis, Avon Fire and Rescue Services Liaison Officer with Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services.
Amanda?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda Brown. I'm the Clerk and Monitoring Officer for Avon Fire Authority.
Simon?
I have 3 Simons, Chair. Perhaps I'll start then. So good morning, everybody. Simon Shilton, one Assistant Chief Fire Officers here at Avon Fire and Rescue Service.
Right. Does Simon, you want to come in or not? No? Boys? No. All right. Vaughan?
Good morning, members. Vaughan Jenkins, Service Transformation Team here at Avon Fire and Rescue Service.
Okay. Steve?
Good morning, everybody. Steve Imrie, one of the Assistant Chiefs for Avon Fire.
Okay. And we've had Simon Shilton. Amanda? Sorry, Annabelle.
Good morning, Annabelle Harford, Environmental Manager.
Okay. And then finally, Ben.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Ben Thompson. I'm a Group Manager in Service Delivery Support.
Thank you. And the only one
Sarah,
you
I
have.
think we've missed a couple. Angie, could you introduce yourself, please?
Oh.
Morning all, morning Chair. I'm
Angie. Sorry.
Oh, no worries. I'm Angie Feeney. I'm the Director of Corporate Services here at Avon Fire and Rescue Service.
I know.
Simon Flood, please.
And Alex?
Simon Flood, please.
Simon?
I'll go next. Good morning all. Simon Flood, I'm the Performance Manager for Avon Fire and Rescue Service.
Right. And Alex?
Good morning, everybody. I'm a Procurement Officer at the Avon Fire and Rescue Service.
See if I've got everybody. Sorry, there's 2 screens, which is... is everybody been able to introduce themselves? Oh, sorry, Steve.
Steve Gregory, Democratic Services, Bristol City Council. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you. Right. Well, apart from Simon Flood, who's not introduced himself, but still.
Yes, he has.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, right.
I think Simon Richards may have fallen out the call, actually.
Oh, right. Okay.
So I'll let you know when he's back in.
Thank you. Right. Chair's business. The only thing I really want to say is to thank, if you bear with me, thank a number of people. Can I firstly thank all the members that have been on this committee, because most have been on it for quite some time. I have to say, I think actually this committee is, to me, one of the best, because we seem to get on quite well. We do hold the officers to order and make sure that they are doing their jobs, but it's always done in a nice, friendly, pleasant manner. So I think congratulations to you. It's always very pleasant to do it. As the officers, can I first of all thank, to me, one of the mainstays of, well, probably Avon Fire and Rescue, which, and it's not the chief officer. I think it's Emma. Emma looks after us wonderfully well. She keeps me in order and actually tells me when I'm not doing it right. So my thanks to you personally, Emma. And
you're welcome, Tony.
Okay. I have to say that there's been a couple of people that have come on are fairly new. They've been in the fire authority. Well, one's been in the fire authority, but Steve Imrie, I thought he's stepped up on short notice, and I think he's doing a fantastic job. So, all power to your elbow, Steve. And the other person, another one who keeps me in order, is Amanda, our relatively new clerk, but I think she took over and has flown quite well with it. There are a number of people that are there, seem to be fixtures. So there's Simon Flood, who brings up his nice, his very pretty charts, and we all brings a little colour into our lives. And there's Pete Davis, who tells us all about these wonderful things, and we all understand it perfectly, as you well know. Yeah. So apart from that, there's lots of officers, obviously, Simon, etc. and the various other ones that are thing. And also, it would be remiss of me. I know it's actually on the Avon tracker. That's what I'm trying to say. We've always had problems sometimes with our gender gaps and things like that. But I have to say that there was 2 young ladies who got mentioned in dispatches, so to speak, according to, I think it was in the Evening Post or something. And that's young Angela, yes. Yeah, and also there was Anna James from Western-super-Mare thing. So congratulations, Angie, seeing you're here. Yeah, nice to see some recognition for our lady members. Okay. I'll shut up now because I'll ramble on otherwise.
Yes, if you want to quickly thank the members who won't be standing.
Sorry. Oh yes. Yeah. Sorry, I did mention it, but I know Cleo and Celia are not standing anymore. That is, unfortunate because they were both, superb advocates for this Avon Forest Fire Authority, and I wish them well in the future. I'm not sure I can wish Cleo best of luck in the election, but I'm sure she'll do very well. Okay. Hang on a second. I've got to get these standings up. Excuse me a minute. That's better.
Chair, I think we're now on to how the vote will take place.
Yeah, I'm trying. Sorry, there's so many different things. It's not true. Yeah, so now we've got the minutes of the ordinary meeting on the 29th of January.
Chair, before we move on to that, can we just deal with voting, please, in your script?
Oh, sorry. I told you there's too many bits of paper here. Voting. If we come to a vote, what I will do is ask for any people who are against, any abstentions, and then I will presume that those who have not said anything are for it. I think we'll save a lot of going through names continually. Okay, is everyone happy with that? Yes, good. Right, item 5, minutes of the 29th of January. Can I have, is everyone happy? Richard?
I was just going to propose them, Chairman.
Right, okay.
I'll second them.
And second from Robert, okay. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Right, so they're passed, okay. We've got 6 public access, but we have no people asking for public access. So we go on to item 7, which is the Transform Programme update.
Thank you, Chair.
Item 7 is the performance report.
Yeah.
Which is Simon Flood to present.
Yes. Yes. Where are you, Simon? There you are. Yes.
I'm here, right. Thank you very much. So item 7, the performance report. This report, we're asking the committee to discuss and comment upon the report. And there are 2 appendices with there. Firstly, there's the scorecard, which is a summary of all of our performance indicators. And secondly, as usual, there's Appendix 2, which is the station target trackers, which is a summary of some of those indicators, but in a more graphic format to ease understanding. Following on from what you said earlier, Councillor Davis, bringing a little bit of colour into your life. What we like to see is green colour, and what we're less keen to see is the red colour. And I think just a cursory glance at the charts will show predominantly it is green, showing that we're meeting our targets. We used a very similar or simple red, amber, green mechanism to decide whether, or to indicate whether we're on target. And the vast majority of the indicators are on target. I've been doing this job for a number of years, and this is the best set of performance results that we've managed to achieve, which is fantastic. No doubt some of that is due to changes in our societal factors with regard to the pandemic that we can't control, but no doubt have had an impact upon our performance standards. So for instance, things like road traffic collisions, though we don't measure that as a target, we certainly measure it because it's a key activity that we do. If you look at those, and in June of July of last year, the numbers were very down, mainly because of the stay at home, people not traveling, etc., etc. So no doubt that's had some impact upon our performance, but irrespective of that, we have set out what we set to achieve, which is reducing risk in the community by reducing the number and the impact of incidents. Some of those have been quite spectacular. So I think paragraph 5.2 on the report highlights the percentage reductions compared to this same period last year. And on the report, if you can remember, it's April to February of 2020-21. So some highlights on there: deliberate vehicle fires have reduced by 20%, and deliberate secondary fires have reduced by 3%, and deliberate primary fires by 22%. So some quite spectacular reductions. The other thing I wanted to draw attention to, paragraph 5.3, where we talk about the attendance at false alarms in business premises. It was something where we were quite out of sync with the rest of the fire and rescue services in the UK, in that we were going to most alarms. We've now changed that as a result of the previous service plan, and it's now, I think, a response that is a lot more proportionate to the risk. And you can see there that we have reduced attendance at alarms for this period by 1,902. That was the target, and reduced it by 74% fewer have been attended compared to the period last year, which is a fantastic change. We make reference on the report to the benchmarking information. The instant benchmarking is something that we do within Family Group 4, which is the 16 or so fire and rescue services who are most like Avon Fire. And the information regarding that is on paragraphs 5.4 and 5.5. And you can see from that that members who've been on the committee for a number of years would know that we used to compare a little bit less favourably than we do now. So we are making good progress. And for deliberate primary fires, deliberate secondary fires, and attendance at alarms, we compare favourably in that we're better than the average performance. And for accidental dwelling fires and deliberate vehicle fires, we're still slightly below the average, or higher than the average, but we are catching up. So our improvement is continuing at pace. 5.7 gave some information about the response indicators. So this is the first year that we've measured them using our new response standards. And what we've done with those is taking it away from being a geographical approach. It's more a risk-based approach. So incidents that have the greatest life and property risk, we will aim to get to quickest. And you can see on there that we've been successful so far this year in meeting all three of those new response standards, which is very good news. If you can turn to page 11 of the report, the resources from value for money, we have 3 indicators on there, 2 with regard to health and safety and 1 with regard to reducing our carbon emissions. All 3 of them are on target, and Annabelle will probably touch later on about the reduction in carbon emissions. What we have is a target to reduce them to net zero carbon by 2030. So this was the first, if you like, year of that target, or that aspiration, and our target was reduced by 10%, and after 11 months of the year we've reduced by 18%. So again, some fantastic work there. The next one I wanted to refer to is something, again, that people who've been on this committee for a while will know that we've had problems with in the past, which is regard to our staff sickness, where we had reasonably high numbers in the last few years. If you remember, we set a target last year to say over the next 3 years, so at the end of next financial year, we will achieve an average performance compared to the fire and rescue services who submit data to the National Fire Chiefs Council. So this is the second year of that performance, the 3-year target, and pleased to report that on all 3 of the indicators, the 3 ways we measure it against our various staff groups, we're on target for what we wanted to set to achieve, which is very good. And you can also see in paragraph 511, which is where we've got the benchmarking information, though we are still not where we want to be, which is along the right-hand side of the graph and being below the average line, we're gradually moving along and getting nearer to the average, which is excellent news as well. The things that are possibly less good that we still need to do some work on. Paragraph 5.12 talks about our return to work interview completion, where we have a target to achieve 90% of them to be done within our target time, which is 15 days after return to work. At the moment, we're still not achieving that. We're running on about 79%. What I will say to members is that we have run this data for March of 2021, which is not included in the report, but we've reported it internally. And I'm pleased to report for that month, only one interview failed to meet target. So if we can continue that improvement for the next financial year, then hopefully we'll be reporting success against that indicator. So it looks as though we're making good progress. And the other thing that we need to do that is being governed through our sickness working group is to digitalise that process, because at the moment it's quite a manual process of having to download a form, fill it in, scan it and send it. And we know it needs to be done in a more digital way to help officers with recording the interviews. So it's certainly work in progress and certainly an area for improvement for us. And 5.13, similarly about the performance and development reviews, our PDRs, our target is to have 95% of them in date. By in date, what we mean is that the current interview is no more than 12 months old. So every person, if you like, has their own rolling target to do another PDR, another performance development review within 12 months. Our target is to make sure that happens in 95% of occasions, and at the moment we're on about 88%. So it's again, there's work we need to do to get that up to the target level, but I know our learning and development colleagues who manage this process are certainly working on that and improving the information that they push out to managers to show what needs to be done and when. The final thing I wanted to cover on the report is our target setting for the next financial year, which has just started. There's one slight change to what we're doing. So usually with the incident indicators, our methodology for setting the targets is to look at the last 6 years and exclude the worst and the best performance and take the average of the remaining 4. So it's excluding outliers, if you like. That works reasonably successfully, and our proposal is to continue for all of the indicators, the incident indicators, using that methodology, apart from our attendance at business alarms. And the reason for that is because we have changed our process and how we attend, really doing that average method just wouldn't be realistic, because it would be much too easily achievable. And that comes down to, as I say, we've had the reduction of 74% of the alarms that we've attended. So what we've looked to do is to say instead we would look at the outturn for this current financial year and add 5% to it to give us our target. The reason for adding the 5% is because of the slight unknowns with regard to societal issues with regard to the pandemic. So when businesses, a lot of them were closed down, to a certain extent there was less triggering of alarms and things like that, because there weren't the people in the businesses to trigger the alarms for us to attend. So it's certainly something we'll need to monitor, and potentially as the year goes through, look at revising if we decide that what we have set isn't achievable, realistic, etc., etc. So really that was all I wanted to say to members with regard to the performance reports, but we'll welcome any questions.
Any questions from members?
Chair, there's a question from Councillor Eddy.
Right, Richard.
Simon, at the risk of this becoming a backslapping report, congratulations over the good performance. You also, which makes the lives of members easier, seem to have identified the areas of underperformance and doing something good. Obviously, when the pandemic's receding into memory, I look forward to seeing a better community fire safety program. So that would, but I understand why that's the case now. You mentioned about the return to work interviews. I'm pleased to hear there's been some turnaround, though this has been underperforming for quite some time. So I think we need to keep an eye on this.
Okay. Thank you. Cleo, you had a question, I understand.
Yeah, a couple of notes and for comment really. Yeah, the reduction in deliberate fires, again, we may correlate this to lockdown rules and things like that, maybe. So that's quite interesting. And also, at the same time, there isn't necessarily a spike in domestic things to go out to, you know, despite the fact that more people are at home. So that's also quite interesting. In terms of reduction in staff absence due to sickness, that's encouraging to see that go down. And I think it's good to always kind of cross-reference these things with the People and Culture Committee and just be looking at any trends, you know, with anyone with, say, disabilities, race, gender, if there are any trends there with people being off sick. And I just wanted to check whether everyone was back in the office now, or is there also something to be said about working from home? Are there any, is there a note on that at all?
Could anybody answer Councillor Lake's question as regards working from home, etc.?
Angie's going to help.
Oh, well done, Angie.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Cleo. On the office side, obviously our stations are still sort of coming into work, but we have a recovery plan and programme in place for actually steadily bringing people back into headquarters in line with the government's roadmap. So at the moment, not everyone is back working in headquarters. We have plans to gradually bring people back from around June time, and there's lots of activity with Simon Richards and his team, making sure that we've got social distancing within headquarters and some of our other stations where we have corporate staff. I think it's unlikely with most kind of organisations that will have whole-scale return, I think, for some time because of the need for social distancing. So therefore, I think there will be a combination of kind of working in headquarters, working in some of our station hubs, and working from home, I think, for some considerable time, which is in line with I think, where most organisations are with that. And we do very much look at sort of sickness as part of that, because what we are doing is prioritising people who may wish to return to the office because they are struggling with mental health and isolation at home. So it's very much part of our consideration around the recovery plan and who we bring back to the office when.
Thank you, Angie. And maybe it works the other way as well. People actually work more, maybe more productive from home in some instances. So I guess that all needs to be factored in.
Indeed, yeah, that's part of the flexibility around that as well, Councillor Lake.
Okay, any further comments? Okay, is everybody happy to receive Simon's report? I have to say, it's gone green without being political. I'm sure Councillor Lake is very pleased at this case.
Chair, can I suggest the resolution is that you note the report, because you have discussed and commented on it. So I think the resolution should be that the report is noted.
Yeah. So I can take it to be noted. Any against? Any abstentions? No, report's noted. Okay, thank you. So if we go on to item 8, which is the transformation programme update.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Good morning, members, colleagues. Rather than go through every item that's in the report that's been provided, obviously I'm aware that members will have had plenty of time to read this and digest and prepare any questions. If I just skim through the report, and then I've got a short presentation around work to date and then a proposed work plan going forward to share with members, if that's acceptable, Chair.
Yes, certainly.
Yeah, as the report states, from summary, there was an AFA members briefing on the 10th of February 2021, where I gave a presentation on the transformation programme, and then the full report was taken to Fire Authority the presentation was in January, the full report was on the 10th of February 2021, where members unanimously agreed to support the transformation programme, taking account of the financial implications of the budget, which has been highlighted, of £2.47 million for the duration of the programme. The programme is currently attracting an underspend of £118,000, which is mainly due, well, it's solely due to the fact that we haven't recruited into all of the available roles due to there are a number of issues. Obviously, the pandemic contributed somewhat. And then we've looked at changing some of the roles around for IT, with bearing in mind the new IT infrastructure that's being put in place and various issues in other departments. So that money will be reinvested within the transformation programme. And obviously, if there is no need to, or no requirement to spend it during the course of the programme, then it will, working with the finance team, be put back into reserves in other areas of the service, so that money won't be lost or wasted in any way. But it's just to highlight to members that even though that's a significant figure, there is a very good reason behind it. And hopefully when the further 3 or 4 posts are filled within the transformation team, we'll start not attracting that underspend, and then that won't become an issue going forward. From a progress update perspective, which I'll cover more in the presentation, the corporate A6 has been removed. As members will know, the purpose of that form is to record the presence and or absence of staff at work. However, that information was being captured elsewhere, and a piece of work took place by the transformation team to identify whether or not that form was actually required, because it does take quite a considerable amount of administration time. The actual sheets of paper that they used having an environmental impact, obviously, that this is constantly being done. And we've been able to remove that from use for the corporate side of the organisation. However, there's a little bit more work needs to take place from the operational side of things, and it links into other facets such as overtime and detached duty payments for the operational side, but that's a piece of work that's taking place. We've launched a transformation page on Workplace for members for anyone to join and be fully up to date and up to speed with everything, and then it gives us that opportunity to be transparent, and all the business cases and decisions are being placed upon that page for people to see. We produced an introduction to the transformation program video for those who'd rather do something and that kind of learner, as opposed to sitting down and reading through documentation. The 2 new starters will be with the team on the 5th of May, will be project delivery support officers, and then we'll be looking to appoint the digitisation project manager in the very near future. Future activity-wise, from a performance review and scrutiny committee perspective, with regard to internal audit, the transformation programme's internal audit is programmed for early 2022. The reason it was pushed to 2022 was to allow the programme to actually have achieved things and mechanisms to be put in place and project management principles to be put in place. Otherwise, we felt that working with Angie and the audit team internally, if we'd have audited earlier, there wouldn't have actually been a great deal to audit, so it wouldn't have proven a worthwhile exercise. So that's due to take place in early 2022. With regard to the risks of the programme, it's currently CRR 19, change in transformation, with the risk rating being at 12, which is low to medium risk, and all of the measures we currently have in place ensure that that risk hopefully won't rise at all, and indeed will come down. If I quickly share with you the my screen, 2 seconds, whilst I share my screen. Yeah, so the progress successes we've had to date with the team, we've formed the team from scratch where there was no team previously. We've carried out a large amount of stakeholder engagement across the service, as members will be aware, across all staff groups. We've set up a programme governance board with representation from across the service, from the Chief Fire Officer as the senior responsible owner, finance and all other departments, as you can imagine. We've set the vision and guiding principles, which, as members will know, was shared during the briefings in February and in January. Obviously, the Fire Authority approved the budget in February. We set up a programme management office, which scrutinises everything that the transformation programme does. We've had the quick win from the corporate A6, which has been met with some degree of, trying to think of the right word, joy from the organisation with the amount of time that's been given back to staff rather than filling in the A6 forms. We've carried out the Firewatch review. This was done in March 2020, immediately before the first lockdown. So obviously we're now awaiting the outcome of the IT infrastructure upgrade before actually implementing the Firewatch review, which will give us a much smoother, much more digitalised way of working going forward for all staff across the service, and in particular for our on-call staff, and allowing them a much easier way to book on and off duty and ensure we have better availability of those appliances. Staff development within the team to date, obviously the investment has been made by the Fire Authority, so we need to identify where and when we've spent that money. We've all received PMO practitioner certification via external organisations. Managing successful programs, foundation certificates have been gained across the team. We've carried out effective stakeholder management training. Project management certification has been gained. Some of the team have been on Navigate the Leadership program, as it was felt they were stepping into leadership roles within the transformation team and required that upskilling. We've received ACAS training to ensure that all the policies and processes we develop are in line with ACAS principles, and also benefits analysis training, as obviously particularly from a PRSC perspective, we need to be able to evidence the benefits of the changes we propose to make across the service. Priorities for our next 6 months is recruiting into the remaining vacancies, obviously, program and project plans for 21-22, exploring Microsoft 365 features and opportunities. Obviously, the Fire Authority have made a significant investment into the infrastructure of the service, and indeed Microsoft 365. So we want to be able, as a transformation team, to recommend how to best use that asset for the service to the best of its abilities, making sure it's used as effectively and efficiently as possible. We have the digital transformation strategy, which will be prepared going forward as to how we transform digitally. The Firewatch business case and implementing the outcomes of that particular audit and review. Generate the projects registered across the service. Obviously, there are projects which are ongoing, which we will look to bring into one and under one umbrella to ensure that all projects are managed accordingly and following the same principles. And then looking at the benefits register, identifying what benefits have been gained and the benefits for the service from the transformation program, and thereby giving a return on the investment. Transformation projects, I won't list them all or go through them all. There are 10 currently, of which we currently have just under 70 work packages attached to the various actual projects. So there's a great deal of work going on to implement each of the particular projects. And these will have also been, these are also shared through the Programme Governance Board to ensure that each project links into another project, and thereby the work is kind of seamless and it is incremental. And as the project grows, as the programme grows, then the projects will grow also. If we look at the policy and practice information management system, that's of particular importance, as we need to ensure that we have a robust policy and practice information management system in place, which may be using 365, maybe using an external management system which we buy in, but that is to be determined. Looking at managing attendance, people's absence, and how people are paid is obviously that's of particular importance to everyone across the organisation. And then the next is looking at training and developing me. Obviously, this is how people move through the service with the relevant skill sets required to perform their roles to the best of their abilities. Our project delivery over the next 6 months. TPO1 is Policy and Practice Information Management System, currently carrying out an audit and gap analysis of current policy library, the governance and administration of the policy libraries, and also the policy production and review, how our policies are produced, how they are reviewed, when they are reviewed, and actually who reviews them, because obviously it isn't something the transformation team are going to do on their own. It'll be using subject matter experts for various policies and the reviews, and also tapping into Amanda's legal experience and her expertise to ensure that everything is done in accordance with regulation. Train and develop me. There's currently an integrated gap analysis taking place across all departments and areas of the service around where the gaps are within our training and staff's development. And then we're looking at managing my attendance or absence and how people are paid. So we're looking at the attendance management policy, attendance recording, the expenses and mileage claims. Again, a lot of this is now currently done in paperwork form, in hard copy, and we'll be looking to digitize that moving forward. Sickness and return to work, linking back to the issue Simon was raising around the return to work interviews. It's about how we do those and can we smarten up the way in which they are done. Overtime, recording and payment. How do we allocate overtime? How do we record it, pay it? Again, linking back to the previous issues with the A6 capture form for operational staff. And then obviously that then links into the detached duties and how they are paid. So the policies we're looking at, as you can see them there, I won't list them all. These have been covered in previous presentations given to the Fire Authority. But as you can see, these are the ones predominantly that relate to people. And obviously people and our staff are going to be at the heart of everything we do for the duration of the programme. And then the process is currently underway. We're at the control phase of the corporate A6. So we've gone through the first 4 stages of the way in which we plan to go through all of the various programs. Now we're at the control phase where the new way of working has been implemented, and we're ensuring that the new way of working does indeed provide the benefits we had hoped, and the benefits to staff with the release of additional time for themselves and the requirement not to constantly fill in the A6 form every day. And we're about to begin working with the training and development department, HR, and various other teams across the service, and integrate the gap analysis of the PDR process. Again, linking back to where Simon was evidencing these statistics around PDR completion. It's about bringing in the PDR system that doesn't only carry out the PDR, but it links to other areas of the service. And by identifying something in someone's personal development review, it could then feed in automatically to the training team to plan their development from a training perspective, or indeed if there's something that they're missing, then that can be programmed in. So it's about bringing in a process that doesn't just do the PDR, it links across the service elsewhere. And that quickly, conscious of time, that quickly covers the areas where we are, where we have been and where we are to date. And it would just be, are there any questions from members or points that I can bring additional clarity to, or any further information you'd require?
Okay, any questions from members?
I can't see anything, Chair.
No. Okay. Can we thank Vaughan for his report? And I believe we should be noting this one. Yeah.
Right, Chair.
So for noting, any against, any abstentions? So we're quite happy to do that. Could I just, in case people haven't read the notes, unfortunately, poor Angie's had a COVID jam. She's not feeling all that bright at the moment. I don't know if I can talk to Simon. That's Simon Shilton. Unless we desperately need Angie, can you just tell her to go and, you know, get herself sorted out? And because if we don't need her here, then she doesn't have to be here, I don't think. Is members happy with that? Yeah.
Thanks, Ted. Angie's just rejoined us, but Angie, I think you captured that, didn't you?
That's fine. Thanks for the offer, Chair. I think I'm fine to stay on meeting. I've just got a drink, so thank you for the offer. But I think I'm okay to stay with you. Thanks.
Okay. It must be the time for injections. I had my second one just earlier this morning, so if I sort of flop over, you know what it is. Okay. If we go on to item number 9, that is, let me just get it up a second.
My Cfrs inspection update.
Yeah, that's right.
Pete Davis.
And that's Peter. Yep.
Thank you, Chair. Are you happy for me to go ahead?
Yeah, happy.
Yeah, thank you. So this report presents the latest progress against our HMI Cfrs inspection action plan. And I suppose, to be correct, for the benefit of any subsequent viewing members of the public on the YouTube channel, I should just point out the acronym HMI Cfrs stands for Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services, although I shall probably during my report abbreviate that still further to either HMIC or just HMI, but at least you know what I'm talking about. So this is the latest update and is presented to members for information, and the committee is ultimately asked to note its content. And members will recall that it is presented to each member of the Performance Review and Scrutiny Committee as a result of a decision of the full Fire Authority on the 26th of March 2019, which delegated authority to the committee for leading member-led scrutiny of progress against our HMI action plan. And it covers 3 main areas. The first is an update to the current HMI Cfrs inspection action plan. The second is to confirm the positive outcomes of our COVID-19 thematic inspection undertaken by HMI at the end of last year. And thirdly, the arrangements for the forthcoming second round of all service inspections by the Inspectorate. So if perhaps, with your permission, Chair, I can take number 2 there of very briefly first, and that was the results of the COVID-19 inspection, which is at paragraph 5.4 and 5.5 of your papers on page 23. Members will recall that the results of our COVID-19 inspection were published by HMI on the 22nd of January, which fell between the deadline for the submission of papers of your last meeting and then the actual meeting itself on the 29th of January. So at your last meeting, we did have the opportunity to verbally update the committee on the outcomes of the COVID-19 inspection, and they were also covered at the full fire authority held on the 24th of March. But for the purpose of this report, just to formally acknowledge that we have received them, albeit that we have verbally discussed the outcomes of the COVID-19 inspection, which was all very positive at the last meeting. So no more really need to say on that. The next thing I just wanted to cover was briefly the arrangements for the forthcoming second round of all service inspections by HMI, which were delayed by 12 months as a result of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, but are now gathering pace towards the start of our next inspection in May. And the details around that are from paragraph 5.7 of your report onwards. The preliminary inspection activity, which consisted of the document request and strategic self-assessment, that was all completed and submitted to HMI on time. The inspection activity, which will all be done remotely as a result of continuing public health restrictions, starts in the week commencing the 10th of May and will last principally for 6 weeks as far as the interaction of the service goes. There are a few bits which happen after the 18th of June, but that 6-week period is the main virtual evidence collation by HMI during our next round, with an anticipated publication date simply quoted as winter 2021. The round 2 inspection fieldwork, there's been a lot of detailed activity up until now to confirm the inspection timetable. That's really coming together very well now. And I've been having some very detailed meetings with our service liaison lead at HMI in order to get everybody into the timetable and ready for their various interviews, focus groups, and other inspection activity. The staff survey, which is an integral part to an HMI inspection, is due to open next week, and that will remain open for 5 weeks to collect the opinions of the whole staff workforce. And as I say, tranche 1 inspection results are due to be published in the winter. So that's ongoing activity and keeping us all very busy in preparation for the forthcoming next inspection. So with that aside, I'll just return to the main purpose of the report, which is the latest updates to our round 1 HMI Cfrs inspection action plan, which members will recall contains 102 different improvement actions, and the latest version is appended at Appendix 1. In summary, on page 22 of your papers, you've got there a table of progress against the 102 individual actions and an overall progress pie chart at the bottom of the page. And this is probably where I'll focus my attention, given that the latest progress against each individual action is highlighted in red against the relevant actions in Appendix 1, which, apologies for the length of it, but that just shows how much work we've been doing and the progress that we've made. The piece that I'll probably highlight is what might appear to be a plateauing of progress against the 102 individual actions, and that's indicated by, in each of those individual boxes, the fact that the status of each action, which is still outstanding, hasn't changed since the last report was tabled to PRSC at the end of January. You'll recall that meeting was held at the very end of January, and the advance lead time for papers for today's meeting meant that the latest available version of the HMI action plan as approved by the service leadership team was the March edition, which you'll find at Appendix 1. Therefore, there was really only about 6 weeks of progress, which is actually reported between the two meetings, which accounts for that static position in Table 1, which I've already mentioned. To some degree, progress was also hampered during this particular reporting period by the ongoing disruption due to the COVID-19 pandemic. That said, the good news is that subject to approval at the next meeting of the service leadership team on Thursday next week, the very latest monthly update to the inspection action plan is reporting an additional 9 actions changing from in progress to complete, which will then take the total from the reported 80% in the pie chart on the bottom of your page 22 up to 89% complete. So members can be reassured that ongoing progress and the impetus towards completing our inspection action plan is continuing. That leaves 11 of the 102 individual actions as ongoing, and some of those do have planned extended completion dates. So if I take one example, the implementation of national operational guidance, that's always anticipated to have a completion date of 2022. So the scheduled work programs are over an intended prolonged period of time. And those further improvements and completed actions that I've mentioned will of course be fully included in the committee's next update at its meeting in July. So I think there, Chair, I've covered all that I needed to cover. The paper is presented for your information and for noting, but happy to take any questions or queries if members have them.
Any questions from members? There's nothing in the chat, but is anybody? Celia?
Just a comment, really. I think the template in the nature of the report is written so well and with such detail, it makes it very easy to see where you're making progress and where you're not and why that is. So I'd like to thank you for that very much. And I think the progress that's been made does need to be commended, because it's been an incredibly difficult year, but you know, to make the progress you have, I think is a very laudable outcome.
Okay. Any further questions, comments from members? No? Then we're asked to note the progress and note the current and forthcoming inspection activity. Anybody against that? Abstentions? Everybody for? That's great. This will obviously come back to the next committee meeting, just because it's an ongoing thing. Okay, perhaps we can go on to the next, which is the Grenfell Tower report.
Thank you, Chair.
Ben Thompson to present.
Yeah, sorry,
Thank you.
I should have said that. Yes, Ben.
So thank you, Chair. So with your permission, what I intend to do for this progress update is just run through and pull out some of the highlights of the report, and then obviously offer an opportunity for anyone to ask any questions following that.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So this is the Grenfell Tower Inquiry Progress Update, and the committee is to note the report. Before I get into kind of the detail of it, it's just worth noting, as per section 3.2 of the paper, that phase 2 of the inquiry commenced on the 22nd of January this year and is currently ongoing. So obviously we've got one eye on the future, and our radar is on that, because we undoubtedly expect there'll be further learning to come out from that phase 2 section of the inquiry and report. Moving on to section 4 and the financial implications. We were very grateful last year to receive a Grenfell infrastructure grant from central government of approximately £99,000. That arrived in the latter half of 2020. And what we've done since then is allocated those funds to assist with the gaps which we previously highlighted and were reported to this committee in January of 2020. So there are some details contained there within Appendix 1. Just a couple of examples of where we've allocated some funds. We've recruited an additional full-time CAD technician who is working very closely with Bristol City Council at the moment to produce site-specific information in relation to our high-rise buildings. And that will almost certainly be invaluable going forward to provide that situational awareness that our frontline crews need when deploying to such incidents. Other key examples of where we're using some of that funding is the provision of smoke hoods that members of the public can use to evacuate from a building where smoke and toxic products of combustion are present. These have arrived in service now and will be issued to our frontline appliances imminently, hopefully next month. Moving on to section 5 and the internal actions. So members will probably recall that after the initial gap analysis, which was completed against the Grenfell Tower report, we documented 29 internal actions. These can be seen in Appendix 2. Of those 29 actions, I'm pleased to say that we now completed 13 of them, and a further 12 of them are at least 50% complete. So in a nutshell, we have made good progress, but we're very mindful that there is still much work to be done. These can be seen and are illustrated in Table 1 in the bar graph provided within the report. Estimated completion dates of the 29 internal actions, we estimate that 26 will be complete by the end of 2021. However, actions 2 and 3 will go beyond this as they link to a wider piece of work around our operational risk information system, and a business case has recently been submitted to area manager and ACO level around this. And also action number 28 is a piece which relates to our compatibility with police and ambulance services and their IT infrastructure, hardware and software. As such, it's effectively an action which we don't have the full power to resolve because there's a number of work streams on a national level with our blue light partners, and clearly we don't have full influence over those, but we are working closely with them to try and resolve those pieces. Just worth noting, the HMIC FRS report recently, and I think everyone's happy with that acronym as my colleague Pete Davis described it earlier, but they recently produced a report into London Fire Brigade's progress. And very briefly, that report highlighted some positives, but it also highlighted more work to be done for London. Obviously, we're trying to learn from where they've progressed well and where perhaps there's still got room for improvement. A key highlight of that report into London Fire Brigade was that whilst they've worked and done some excellent pieces around policies and procedures, there is a need now for them to exercise and test those to provide assurance to their senior officers, and obviously in our case, the fire authority. So that is something that is very much on our radar internally. We've done a lot of work recently, reference our procedures and policies to bring them up to date and improve them. But we're very mindful that we need to attest and ensure those, because clearly if HMIC or FRS have looked at that for London, they will almost be certainly doing the same for Avon Fire and Rescue. Moving on to section 5.5, now looking at external actions and national progress. So in order to progress our work around Grenfell, we continue to work in collaboration wherever possible. And one such example of this is Bristol City Council. We've been doing some excellent work with our CAD team to produce high-rise plans And it's really pleasing to say that the local authorities have been very receptive to that and are doing all they can to assist us. Very simple examples of that could be providing information on where the gas isolation points are or the electric isolation points are, so that we can add that information to our plans and then provide it to our frontline crews for operational response. Moving on to 5.6 and national progress. We actively continue to monitor national updates. An example of this recently is the National Fire Chiefs Council, which have released guidance and information on evacuation alert systems. In very basic terms, what these evacuation alert systems are is a button at the entrance of a building you can press to raise the alarm for the entire building. And it was well documented with Grenfell Tower that that simply wasn't possible. In terms of managing everyone's expectations, whilst the British Standard has now been produced for that, and obviously talks are ongoing with building developers, architects and engineers, we do need to be mindful that it's not necessarily a statutory duty to retrofit such systems. But clearly, where they are fitted in buildings, we will be documenting that and making our fire crews aware. Moving on to section 6 and risks. Clearly, any failure to implement recommendations around Grenfell Tower in a timely manner could impact adversely on our aspiration for a good outcome from the Cfrs report. So that is a risk we are certainly mindful of. And then moving on to section 7, it's clear that learning from outcomes of public inquiries is embedded in our service plan 21 to 24. Therefore, clearly, we want to take every opportunity to improve the service, to make our community safer and our service stronger. That's a highlight from me, Chair. Any questions from any of the members, please?
Richard, I believe you have a question.
Indeed, Chairman. Ben, thanks for your report. I'm speaking with my planner's hat on here. In Bristol, we have quite a move for more high-rise dwellings. Now, do you think Avon has resources to actually reply to all those inquiries?
Sorry, Councillor, do you mean specific inquiries or?
Yes, to do with a specific planning application. Obviously, I appreciate where there's a particular high-rise one, that will probably trigger your radar, of course, but I'm just querying with the present demand for more high-rise building in Bristol, do you think we have enough resources to respond in time to those inquiries?
In terms of resources to respond to like the planning phase and those sections, I'd probably be going slightly outside of my scope of comfort, and I'd probably have to refer you to somebody like Area Manager Stephen Quinton from the Business Fire Safety Department. If you also mean as part of that question our ability to respond operationally, then I can probably give you some assurance there. We're working very closely with our business fire safety team as we review our policies and procedures so that our operational response phase can adapt as required. So that is something we are constantly reviewing and updating. Does that answer your question, Councillor?
I see Steve's actually put his hand up, so he may have something to add.
Okay.
Steve, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, and thank you, Councillor Eddy, for bringing me in. In response to your resource question, Councillor Eddy, yes, you may have seen in other reports in Fire Authority that we've invested heavily in the increase in our business fire safety team. We've got a significant increase in our completion rates for planning advice in relation to the said property. So currently, we're comfortable that we have sufficient resource in place to respond to plan applications or inquiries. and it's something that we're continually keeping under review.
Okay. I've got comments, questions from Cleo and also Celia. So Cleo, would you like to go first?
Thank you. Obviously a major tragedy in our time and field of service. The work you described, Ben, in terms of the collaboration with local authorities in practical terms, re-infrastructure, you know, and to be able to get those plans in terms of operational response is really positive and welcomed. I just wanted to go over the phase 2, which commenced on the 27th of January, as in the report, and it says there it focuses on the underlying causes of the disaster, including decisions made in relation to critical aspects of the design and construction of the cladding system, the adequacy of the regulatory regime and the response of central and local government. And if you go into that outside of this report, there is a module 3 that talks about complaints and communication with residents, management of Grenfell Tower, compliance with fire safety order, etc., which really alludes to systemic and institutional issues as perceived by many across the nation in terms of race and class. And I doubt that we get many complaints because we're not a social housing provider or landlord, but I think there's something to be thought about in terms of the dialogue and sharing information that we have between local authorities and the fire authorities that goes beyond just elected members, as some of us are here now, and also, you know, beyond the things like you've discussed about the partnership working that already exists, specifically with Bristol in terms of high-rise dwellings. And it's just a thought out loud, really, and the thinking more about potential scenarios, because these points are more about principle and not just in relation to the cladding, but I think they are things that are really important.
Okay. Thank you for that. Celia.
My comment's just a much more general one related to the policies being developed for managing a transition from stay put to get out. And I'm pleased you're working with local authorities. What worries me a little bit is, and this is based on my conversations with residents of over 50s in current tower blocks, which may not be constructed as Grenfell, but there's still concerns about living in the tower block, about how you can assist the more vulnerable residents to leave a premises. There is still worry and concern about those being unable to get out. There's also worry about additional heat sources within a tower block, including things like mobility scooters, which I don't think, it's a really difficult one to enforce. I've seen letters up in tower blocks that said, you know, it is here, it should be removed. But actually, you then leave someone completely isolated. I know this is much more general than Grenfell, but it is an issue.
Okay. Did anyone Ben? Do you want to make any comment on that, or?
Just in reference to Councillor Phipps's last point, literally as of 2 weeks ago, we have a current working group which has been formed to look at evacuation of high-rise properties and other properties, with the aim of producing a new procedure policy guideline for that. Working closely again with our business fire safety team, and obviously again in collaboration with local authorities. But you're right, there are challenges around that and how we do it. But we're certainly looking at all sorts of options for how we alert and make people safe. Everything from as wide ranging as alert systems using drone technology to the evacuation alert systems I alluded to in my report. So we're considering all options to promote the safety of our community in these high-rise blocks. But they are challenges which are there and which we have to overcome. But I think when we look at where we were 2 or 3 years ago in terms of that and where we can be within the next 12, 18 months, I think we can make huge bounds and huge progress.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that. we're asked to note the report and discuss its contents and make any recommendations or suggestions it sees fit. I think the recommendations have basically been that closer cooperation with the local authorities is something to be welcomed. Yep. So are we happy to note that report with that? Yes. Okay. So note, yeah, everyone's for it. Could I just say, just advise people, this will be a standing item on future BRSC committees, okay? Right. We then go to, oh, we got to go into exempt session, haven't we?
Chair, you first need to announce the date of the next meeting.
Right. I'm glad I've got you here.
Would you like me to announce that?
If you like, yes, go on. Yeah.
So the date of the next meeting is the 16th of July at 10:30 hours, and it says chair to move. So I'm moving it on your behalf, Chair.
Thank you very much indeed. It's so moved, yes?
Yes.
Right, we now have to go into exempt session. Let me just see what I've got to. Right, so this is the exclusion of the press and public. It's to resolve that the public be excluded from the meeting during the following items of business on the grounds that they contain exempt information pursuant to Schedule 12A, Part 1 of the Local Government Act 1972, and that in accordance with Schedule 12A, Part 2, Paragraph 10 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. Okay, so this is Annabelle.
So sorry, Tony, Chair, before you move on, if you're going to propose that, can we have a seconder and then Emma will stop recording?
Oh, okay, sorry. Trevor is,
yep. Okay, bear with me and I'll stop recording.